All right, time having arrived, I call the regularly scheduled meeting of the City Council Finance Committee to order. Madam Clerk.
Good evening. Whereas the City Council adopted an order on July 25th, 2016, approving the March 8th, 2016 Urban Renewal Plan prepared by A.G. Jennings, LLC, and Stantey as an urban renewal plan prepared in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 121B and 760 CMR 12, and approved the boundaries of the downtown urban revitalization plan as depicted in Map 1 in the plan. And whereas there exists a need to amend the 2016 Urban Renewal Plan to facilitate further development and redevelopment in designated areas in the city to reflect the current status, progress, and priorities in the city of Brockton. Ordered that the City Council hereby adopt the amended Downtown Urban Revitalization Plan dated April 15th, 2022, attached as Exhibit A. This order authorizes the mayor to approve minor, non-substantive language changes in the amended Downtown Urban Revitalization Plan if such changes are recommended by the Department of Housing and Community Development or MEPA office. This order shall take an effect upon its final approval by the Department of Housing and Community Development. Invited, Robert Jenkins, Executive Director, Brockton Redevelopment Authority. Philip Griffin, Chairman. Rob May, Director of Planning and Economic Development. Megan Bridges, City Solicitor.
Councilors, I just want to say before we start that I did hear from Councilor Farwell. He's not going to be able to make it tonight. He's under the a little under the weather, and Councilor Rodriguez, who has a personal obligation. But time having arrived, I declare this hearing open.
Good evening, Mr. President, councilors. Again, thank you very much for having us in. Tonight, we'd like to make a presentation to you with the proposed amendment to the Downtown Urban Renewal Plan. As you know, a lot of things have changed in Brockton, the world, since we first started this project. And there's some new opportunities that have been available to the city now that we'd like to show to you. There are some changes. The district remains essentially the same, but some of the projects in it have changed in scope and in magnitude. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn this over now to Mr. Jenkins and Mr. May, and they will give you a presentation on these projects. If you have any questions after, I'll be here to be glad to ask them. And thank you again for having us in. Gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone here in favor? Mr. Director.
Fantastic. Once again, thank you, councilors, for having us here this evening. Many of you have seen and heard and seen the updates, as this plan has been in progress now for at least a year and a half. We've been working on it. Over the course of this year, we've had essentially 3 meetings with the Citizens Advisory Committee of the Brockton Redevelopment Authority in February, March, and April. Many of those meetings, many of you have attended and participated in. The BRA has held 2 of those meetings on this amendment. I think we held a meeting in April with the CAC, Citizens Advisory Committee. Then on April 20th, the Board of Directors held a special meeting of the Redevelopment Authority, which they voted to approve said amendment and advance the amendment of the Downtown Brockton Urban Revitalization Plan. Let's go to the first slide, Mr. May. Just to give those of you who were, I've met with several of you, I've talked with several of you, some of you I've even come to my office and we've talked about the amendment itself. Those of you who weren't around in 2016, this board, as it was stated earlier, passed the Downtown Brockton Urban Revitalization Plan in 2016. We had estimated doing 1,000 units at that time, and as the chairman has indicated, things have changed, as everybody knows, and rising of interest rates, as well as inflation has taken hold. We're not in 2016. Bright side of it, though, is we anticipated doing about 1,000 units over a 20-year period we are now well over 500 units that are in progress or completed based on your plan that you approved in 2016. With that said, some of the changes that we want to go through, and I'm going to go through this quickly. I think everybody was sent at least a couple of weeks ago the amendment as well as the updated urban revitalization plan. A couple of things. This is in accordance with Mass General Law 120B, where this body has to actually approve said amendment in order for us to advance it to the state and Mass Environmental Protection Agency for approval as well. Some of the changes that have taken place, zoning, as we can go to the map, but right now, just the zoning, proposed properties that have been added, update on the rehabilitation and the demolition of properties, new construction list of properties, proposed redevelopment of projects that have been revised, update of the proposed infrastructure and public amenities, which I think we really did lack when we first did the plan. We'll also talk about the budget at the end of this, because one of the things I want to point out, this, once again, we have another 20-year plan. We're in year 6. We have another 14 years to go in order to make any of this come. And this is really a wish list. And the advantage of having an urban revitalization plan as a gateway city, and I think you'll probably hear from some of the people that will testify, is that a city that has a plan at least has a road to what they'd like to see in their community. I think that puts us at an advantage compared to a lot of other gateway cities. The fact is everybody knows we have 3 train stops. Everybody knows we're 27 miles south of Boston. Those are all advantages that we've taken place with. Next slide, please, Rob. Smart growth zoning update. City Council revised our zoning ordinance in 2016, expanding the downtown core. We've also created other zoning areas, Perkins Park sub-district being one of them. Many of you have seen this map that's now up on the screen. We've created a number of certain districts within the urban revitalization district. Thank you, Rob. Next. New construction and acquisition. One of the questions that I know folks will ask is, wow, this is a big budget, this is a big change. Is the city gonna have to come up with funding for this? Based on our plan, the city is not gonna have to come up with any funds for this. This is really our emphasis, since, how should I say, as the mayor says, Brockton is worth investing in. And we've seen investors come, meet with myself, meet with Rob May, meet with the mayor. Some probably have even talked to some of you as well. You may hear from some investors and developers in the audience. Brockton is, if you invest in Brockton, you're going to get a return on your investment. Some of the new acquisition and disposition parcels that were not included in 2016, we are now including. I think I don't want to go through the complete slides, but if you have the package, and for those people that are home, it's up on our website, it's up on the city's website, it's on the planning board's website. Some of the sites quickly to go through is the AC site, the what I refer as a Stadelman block, the Y site, which is Legion Parkway, 111 Legion Parkway, where the brass gas station is as you turn the corner from Legion Parkway onto Warren Avenue. The W site, which is a private parking lot that's between Legion Parkway and Frederick Douglass Avenue. AC, which is the private parking lot on Main Street at school. People know that. The Z site, which is 28 School Street. And the X site, which is 83, also Legion Parkway. Some of these sites everybody's very familiar with. We also have a map that's included, and we're more than happy to take your calls on any of those. I'm not going to sit here and talk forever because this is a public hearing, and we do want to hear from the public, and we want to hear from you. New deposition parcels, you can see them on the map. I won't go through them all. Next slide, please, Rob. Rehabilitation, demolition, and new construction, we've also identified as a change to the 2016. Rehab and demolition, new construction. All of this information is included in the amendment that we submitted to you, as well as in the document itself, which I know is a lot of reading. It's 100 or so pages, but once again, you'll find the information in there. At this point in time, I'll turn it over to Mr. May to talk about some of the proposed developments. I'm hoping he be as brief as I am.
Director May, how are you?
Me, brief. Thank you, councilors. And Robert and I, if you're ever in a conversation with us, seem to be talking in a code where we talk about, you know, AC and O and S. And these are all sites that are referred to in the urban renewal plan. And you'll see on this map in particular all the different sites that have been identified by their development letter. We call these opportunity sites. Some of them are catalytic opportunity sites. You'll hear that phrase periodically because we think that they are of such value that they really kick off development across the block, across the section of the city that they're in. One of the largest parcels that we've added to the grouping is Site AC, or the Stadelman block. It starts at 45 Frederick Douglass Way and includes 136 Warren Avenue and the several off-street parking lots that are in between there. Some of those are city-owned, but the vast majority of the site is owned by the Stadelman family. And we're proposing a new 350-plus parking space public garage with multi-residential development above it and commercial development, which perhaps includes an urban, a vertical urban farm. You may have seen presentations that Robert has done recently with the Day brothers. TDB, who is here with us tonight, but this kind of gives you an idea of what the development could look like with the greenhouses in blue, and that is directly across from Warren Avenue from the new public safety building. It includes commercial space and residential above the parking garage. Robert talks about the site Y, which is 111 Legion Parkway. Two individual buildings on one parcel in horrible, horrible shape. As a matter of fact, I believe the power and the water have been cut off to those buildings in the last 2 weeks. But we want to work with the existing property owner to reinvest in this site. And if they were to work together, we think that there could be a very nice residential redevelopment here. This drawing was done by some students at the Boston College of Architecture, and it just is an example of the massing that could fit on this block. So please don't get excited that that's the exact building that's going to be there. It'll more than likely be something else, but it gives you an idea of the size of the space. There is a private parking lot that we would like to acquire on Legion Parkway that connects Legion Parkway with Frederick Douglass Way. And we think that it's an important parcel for us to own because it'll give us access to the proposed parking garage at Frederick Douglass at Site AC. And we're proposing that this become a green link or a parkway that creates a pedestrian passage to connect those two streets. And it also preserves the Liberty Tree. And we think that this would make a great memorial park also to celebrate our abolitionist history with Frederick Douglass and William Lloyd and several other famous abolitionists having visited Brockton. This could be both a monument and a green space for the community. Site AE is the vacant parking lot, not vacant, but it's a parking lot at the corner of Main and School Street. We would like to expand City Hall Plaza into that area to create new green, programmable green space to provide amenities for our downtown residents and downtown workers. We, of course, need to negotiate a acquisition of the parcel, or at least the BRA will, and we'll need to relocate the cars that are parked there. But there is a strategy that we're developing for that now. Site S. Site S was already on the original plan. It's the old fire station on Pleasant Street, but we neglected to include the 2 parcels on Green Street. So we need to treat that all as one piece of property, and so we're hoping to amend the plan to include that. When the new public safety building opens and the fire station gets relocated, we're hoping that the redevelopment authority will work with a potential purchaser to acquire the property and historically rehabilitate that fire station into a new use. We're not quite sure what that use is going to be. It could include a portion that is set aside for a museum, a fire museum. We have some beautiful old antique fire trucks, but there could be, a first floor restaurant and a fire museum and something else upstairs. We don't know just yet. Site AD, the Kennedy Building. Now, it has a prospective purchaser, but we're adding it to this list to make sure that we can hold people's feet to the fire. The building has been vacant for a long, long time. There's been 2 offices in the building and the coffee shop. The 2 offices are now closed. The coffee shop we hope will reopen, and we are working with a new owner on the rehabilitation of this building, including the coffee shop. But again, by putting it on the urban renewal list, we make sure that the new owner moves forward and isn't going to just acquire it and sit on it and wait for, a sunny day later on. Site Z, it's 26 School Street. You might remember the city tore down a small 2-story commercial building that was collapsing in upon itself. We're working with a new developer right now who's proposing approximately 60 units of housing, market rate, with first floor retail. But again, we want to put it on the list so that we can hold their feet to the fire should worse comes to worse. This is a conceptual idea of what Site Z could look like. Site X, one of my favorites. Shortly after joining the city, there was a fire in this convenience store and small restaurant. That was 8 years ago. They have done absolutely nothing with the property. We as a community can't allow that to happen. And so Robert and I have decided that we're asking you to put that onto the list so that we can stimulate development. I was going to say shake the living daylights out of the current owner, but make something happen at this property because there is a need for space in the city. And then there's a series of proposed infrastructures and public amenities that we're talking about. The first is the Frederick Douglass Garage, which we mentioned at Site AC. There is an opportunity for a performing arts center, and I'll touch on that in just a second. There's an opportunity to expand City Hall Plaza, which we discussed a minute ago, and the green links, which are ways of connecting the public parking facilities with our major retail streets like Legion Parkway, Main Street, and connecting City Hall Plaza across to WB Mason, and provide green, outdoor, pedestrian-oriented pathways and programmable space. And I want to talk a little bit about Performing Arts Center. Oh, I'm sorry. First of all, that's the map of where the infrastructure and green links are. The whole downtown transportation plan. So you'll see that there's 20 red circles. Those are all intersections that need to be rebuilt as part of converting downtown to 2-way traffic. We're making some advances right now on Warren Avenue as part of the public safety building redevelopment, but The rest of downtown is going to need some tender loving care. The two blue squares or rectangles are the public parking facilities. The green links are the green links. And then the pink or fuchsia is an area where we think the public performing arts facility could go. It's the right size for something that happens to happen there. And Frederick Douglass Garage, performing arts. So this is the lot on Lincoln Street. And it's a conceptual, and we're not saying this is exactly where it's gonna have to happen. There's gonna be a lot of negotiation that happens between the redevelopment authority and the parking authority, and where do we put those cars, and how do we appropriately address the needs of WB Mason and several other tenants. But this again is we have 16 years of this 20-year plan to go. So there is going to be some work on this. 14 years, excuse me. Downtown Brockton used to have 5 theaters, and they have either burned down or have been torn down, and the ones that have been torn down, we've made way for some, the Adams Garage, and for the, where the DA is now, the old courthouse, the current courthouse, excuse me, on Main Street, had a theater on that block. But there were 5 large theaters. And right now, there's not one stage in Brockton that is usable outside of the public high school. And if we are going to be really creating a destination for people to want to come, we need arts and entertainment in our downtown to support the restaurants that we're trying to attract, and to support and provide activities for the residents and employees who are coming downtown. And
Just make a comment that this was also something that from our CAC in our public meetings that was also brought up. I just want to say that we did not just think this up about a performing arts. This was brought up through our 3 public meetings, and people responded. This was the public's input, that they were looking for where are our cultural events supposed to happen. We don't have a stage, we don't have a performing arts center other than at the high school. It was also brought up that I think the Brockton Orchestra doesn't play in Brockton. They go and play in Easton. If we are a major city, the only city in Plymouth County, and the public sees this and they want this, this is why we looked at where would we put one. As Rob indicated, this is really a wish list over the next 14 years that we need to address and look at. Not to say that we're going to do this in 3 years, 5 years, for that matter, even 10 years, but it's something that the public is looking for from its leadership. I'm sorry.
No, thank you. Before we go on, Robert's going to do a wrap-up in just a second before we start opening up for questions. But you might remember, if some of you were here 6 years ago, when we said, we are going to redevelop the old fire station, the historic fire station. We think there's a better use for that. We're going to redevelop the spot where the police station is right now. People say, you're crazy, and that's never going to happen. Well, we're in the process of building a $98 million public safety complex that is advancing that plan and is allowing us to then, as a community, to make those sites available for redevelopment with our partnership with the BRA. So while it might be a pipe dream to have a theater downtown, to have performing arts downtown, it's not out of the realm of possibility. But if you don't put your stake, plant your flag, put your stake in the sand, then you're just wandering. So it gives us something to be aspirational about. And I'll let you finish up.
Sure. And just on that same note, I know when we came 2015, started the conversation, people were saying, and most of you were here, a lot of you were here, and most of you have been around, and you heard them say, oh, another plan that'll never get off the ground, just another plan. Well, this plan is off the ground. It's moving forward. It has the support of this body, of my board, and of the mayor. The last 3 mayors have been very supportive of the advancement of the development. And as everyone here and I alluded to earlier, is that times are changing. This is just a second amendment. There's going to be a third, a fourth, and probably a fifth, okay? Again, one of the things I want to go through is just on the budget, the last page, because
Just 1 second. And it's
Sure.
this plan that has been recognized by the state and that, they've lauded the redevelopment authority for its leadership and implementation. We've attracted tens of millions of dollars in state financing and assistance because we have this plan. So it is really a beauty to behold. I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, and that's a good, preference for what I'm going to say. Essentially is, and I know people look at the budget numbers, and the budget numbers are huge and they're large. Part of that is because of the requirement of the state. They now require us to include every single infrastructure improvement. Before it was assessed value, well, now they want appraised values of these buildings that we've targeted. So those numbers are, yeah, they're big, but the requirement from 2016 to 2022 are different. They're more inclusive in 2022. 2017, we showed the Carpenter Garage with no debt service, or debt service only. Today, if we show a garage, they want the total development costs, just not the debt service. They want the total development costs. And we kind of have that information, so we provided that. Cost of, the new Frederick Douglass Garage, I mentioned that, downtown transportation. Well, we didn't talk a lot about transportation in 2016. They require it now. They want to see the signals, and even with the upgrade of our public facility, from what I understand, and I'm not the expert on this because I haven't been totally involved, but you folks probably are, that's going to require some changes on Warren Avenue. Some updating, and they want to know those, they want to know those, what that amount's going to be. Utilities, if we're talking about an urban vertical garden, well, that's going to require a lot of electricity, and they want to know how we're paying for it, who we're paying for it. And the last point I want to make is our philosophy, our methodology here is that the city put in as little money as possible. I remember just now talking to Councilor Castro, and that's the biggest, I think that's what everybody looks is that huge amount of money and where is it coming from. Granted, we will probably apply for more grant money from MassWorks to build a garage. We'll probably apply for more acquisition money from Mass Development. But our philosophy has always been in methodology. The city puts in the least amount of money. I think we're taking an approach of most developers, senior developers, where they use very little of their money. Well, that's the concept we're using. We're using very little of our money and taxpayers' money. We think that we're worth the investment for private development, and private development has stepped to the plate and said, yeah, we think you are too. So when you look at those numbers, don't think that it's all coming from the city of Brockton, because it isn't. We're looking at it coming from mostly selling of our private property, the investment on private property that we may or may not acquire, and also the investment. We're looking for them, and I think we ask for testimony, because this is a hearing. We ask for testimony from the audience. I think you'll hear a lot of local developers, local businesses that I think are ready for this kind of move in the city of Brockton. And with that, I'll close out our presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else here who would like to speak on this hearing? Anybody else? All right, seeing none, I declare that the public hearing closed. Councilors, any
Chairman?
questions? Councilor Azak?
Yeah, you didn't ask if there was anybody in opposition.
No, anyone who would like to speak on the hearing in general.
Oh, okay.
So in favor, opposed? Anyone?
No, I'm not,
listen
but
now?
usually.
You got something to say?
No, I've been in favor for years, but usually
What's that?
that's what.
No, so I did check with the clerk just to be
Okay.
sure. But it is just, would anyone like to speak? And so that part of the hearing is closed. Are there any counselors with any questions for the director or the chairman? Counselor Minicello.
Good evening. How are you tonight?
Well, Counselor, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. You mentioned that there will be market rate rental apartments developed.
Correct.
In terms of the apartments that are right across the street from WB Mason, where the art studios are,
Yes, Trinity, Phase 1 and 2.
are those market rent?
It's a mix. It's a low-income housing tax credit developments where they have a mix. I don't exactly know what the mix is.
It's 60% are affordable and 40% are market rate in phase 1. In phase 2, which is currently under construction, it's the reverse of that. It's 60% market and 40% affordable.
And that was how it was set out originally, correct? So with development downtown with regard to rentals, have any of the market rate units been converted to Section 8 at all in terms of projects that have been presented as market rate, but over time become subsidized in some shape or form?
Since I've been here, no.
Okay.
And Councilman Minicello, you've been here just as long as everyone else. We know that, especially in the downtown district, it's no surprise, there's a heavily percentage of subsidized housing. Our focus at the Redevelopment Authority is to obtain a balance, and that's what we're working for. We've actually incentivized doing market rate units to obtain that balance. Once we hit that balance, and people will say, well, Robert, what's that balance? Well, right now it's arbitrary because we don't have a housing policy in the city of Brockton for downtown or anywhere else for that matter. So what the balance is when we get there, hopefully we will know.
I'm certainly in favor of market rate rent. I just point out that in order to attract market rate tenants, you have to pay attention to the small details. And the small details, to me, are not that complicated, but take effort. Meaning that people who are thinking about renting downtown want to make sure that it's safe. They want to make sure that it's clean. They don't want to see people living, under overpasses. They don't want to see people urinating. They don't want to see mattresses. If we're going to attract the type of development that we're talking about and bring Brockton to the next level, you have to pay attention to those details, because you're not going to get people to say, you know what, I'm going to take a chance. Because as we remember, the condominiums next to the Atonic building condominiums, the two phases, one where the gym was in the bottom floor next to the telephone company, and then the other phase that's right adjacent to the post office, those were condos. And those condos, when they originally went in, were very expensive. And then the market dropped, and people really got stuck and burned with some of those condos in terms of big losses. So my point is, I think this is great. I think Brockton needs to go to that next level. I think we can achieve that. I mean, Worcester is having a regeneration, a renaissance, so to speak. Quincy is doing the same thing. Brockton is so perfectly located right in between Providence, Boston, the Cape. But in order to be successful, you have to make sure that the people feel good about downtown. You want young people to take the train in. You want young people to say, this is a great place to live, tell their friends. We need things for those young people to do, like you said, theater, restaurants. But in order to attract those type of things, you have to make sure that people feel safe, the streets are clean. Because you're not going to have investors investing that kind of money and take a chance, especially on a movie theater. We had a movie theater up at the mall, and but things got out of hand. People didn't really feel safe in the movie theater. I mean, you go to see a movie and you want to see whatever you want to see, and you want to be able to watch it. You don't want to tell people, could you please sit down? Could you please be quiet? And then you're going to get yelled at or sworn at. We need to make sure that the details are paid attention to so that this development will take hold. Because Brockton really could move to that next level. I'm all for it, but we all need to make sure those small details, the quality of life details, the simple quality of life details are followed. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Anyone else? Counselor D'Agostino.
Just a couple of things. First, I agree with everything Councilor Minichiello just said about we need to make sure that some of the less than desirable conditions in downtown are addressed for this to work. But some of these things like the Performing Arts Center, the Urban Garden, that sounds wonderful. One of the things that I've been thinking of, and I think, Mr. Jenkins, when you and I met, we talked a little bit about it. I think we did anyway. Is we've gotten people to come in. We've gotten young professionals that are working in Boston to move into downtown. I've talked to some of them. They love it. But there's not much here for amenities. So I know you've talked about some of those today. I guess I just want to voice that concern that they're coming, but we got to get some amenities and some things for them to do downtown. I mean, we've got Brockton Beer Company now, which is great. You've got Joe Angelo's, you've got Tamboo, there's a few establishments, but, so I guess that's just one concern that's come to my mind is, do we have enough for them to do, on the weekend, in the evening after work, that kind of thing? You look like you're dying to say something. Go ahead.
Yes, and that has been an issue that we are trying to address. You have this chicken and egg situation is how many people do you need living / working downtown in order to attract a restaurant, and restaurants, plural. It doesn't help that the 3 major employers that are downtown all put in cafeterias in their facilities.
Right.
So their employees don't have to go out. Those of us who don't have a cafeteria, i.e. here, City Hall, we need to go out and eat out more. But, it's kind of hard when you're short-staffed. Right. But what I want to say is that we realize that there are issues that we need to address, and that through the DIF, the District Improvement Financing Program, and through CDBG, Robert and I have come up with a series of incentives. We have a restaurant incubator, or excuse me, a restaurant infrastructure loan fund. The first example of that is Brockton Beer, where you've helped finance that kitchen, and we are trying to market that to other landlords downtown to make their spaces available. We have a rent rebate program that's in the DIF district in downtown. It coincides with the state's vacant storefront tax credit program. So there's several buildings downtown that have been pre-identified for tax credits from the state and will be matched with our rent rebate program. And those funds come out of our DIF budget, which unfortunately got cut drastically last budget session. But we have not had anybody take advantage of that. We rolled that out at the very beginning of the COVID-19 crisis, and it's going to take a while to recover from that. But we also understand the need to improve the cleanliness and the appearance of safety downtown. And Robert and I and the Downtown Brockton Association, Robert and I are encouraging the Downtown Brockton Association to potentially create a business improvement district that would pay for extra security and clean and green ambassadors that are out every morning picking up garbage and addressing those issues that are, affecting the quality of life downtown. So we keep at it every day.
I know, and it's come a long way, and it'll come even further. I mean, and it's slow, but we're making progress. Don't get me wrong, and I have to say that I talk to people, in their mid-40s, my age group, who grew up here, and we look at what's in downtown now, and we're like, wow. I mean, we'd never have thought when we were kids that this would be the downtown we'd see in our 40s, right? So I support this, and I think it's wonderful, and I'm glad it's moving forward. I just, I guess, like my colleague, Mr. Minicello, Councilor Minicello said, we got to make sure that maybe we're catching these details along the way.
We are firing on all of those simultaneously.
So my final question is the marketing plan. And again, a lot of this is, I know you're not going to have like the entire answer sitting right here. It's probably a long, ongoing, as we go forward discussion, but to make sure not just the people who live in downtown or maybe live in the city to, market and bring them in, but again, we're the only city in Plymouth County to bring folks in from around us too. What conversations are we having around that, the marketing and?
Well, we are working with the Brockton Partnership, which is a group of local CEOs in cooperation with the Chamber, Metro South Chamber, and the Redevelopment Authority in the city. They are planning a marketing campaign about Brockton in general, but with a heavy emphasis on downtown as a place to invest, to bring your family, to buy a home, to start a business.
It's more, and when he talks about the Brockton Partnership, that is a high-level marketing strategy, as he said, by CEOs of banks, the people, chairman of the banks, the mayor, really high-level marketing. The one thing, Councilor D'Agostino, that you bring up that I'm really sensitive about is the organic marketing for the people that live here in Brockton, who need to benefit from the development, from the investment, and have an opportunity. When the council president called for people with any comments to step forward, I wish some of the folks in back would have stepped forward. We have some local people who should be stepping forward and telling you how they feel about the development down in the city that directs them directly. It affects them directly. And development, and there's another woman that's sitting back here that's from Brockton, who's a proposed developer for a property that's in the downtown, who's organically grown. I hate to say this in public, but it's hard to keep her quiet at times, and you asked her to step forward, and she didn't step forward. Right. These are the, and in all seriousness, these are the things I'm concerned about. The people of Brockton, organically grown, and I get it, Brockton is a majority, minority, black and brown community, I get that, but it's really about opportunity for everyone in the city who lives here, who's invested, their family, who's been here. And I say forever, because my first house I bought in Brockton back in 1998. I wish I would have kept it.
We need more Brockton beers.
We need more, we just don't need more Brockton beers, we need more Brocktonians to participate in the system, in the city's development. We need more of that. It's an opportunity.
Right, and I'm not sure what the answer is, and this is probably a much longer conversation that we're gonna have, or an ongoing conversation that we're not gonna have tonight, but are you trying to tell me to wrap it up?
Yeah.
So, But I only bring this up because, you know, I went into Brockton Beer Company, had a beer, told a friend about it who lives in Brockton. Oh, it was great. And they, oh, where is this place? Oh, it's right on Main Street in downtown. Oh, you know, and so I think we've got to work on selling it
Work to do.
to Brocktonians.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they may be the hardest sell,
It
We're
may
our
be.
own worst enemy.
you know? Yeah. And so that's my something we got to work on. But I know, again, this is not something we're going to hammer out tonight. But, all right, well, thank you very much for being here and the presentation and the answers to my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yeah, Brocktonians, Brockton beer, more Brockton business. A lot of B words. Counselor Azak.
Thank you. I won't be long. I just want to say that, you know, I've been in favor of this from the beginning, and I wanted this yesterday. So to hear 14 years is, it's
Still a long
agonizing.
time.
But there's two things that I wanted to bring up, which I'm a regular at these zoning and planning meetings, or I watch them. Parking, parking, parking. And when I saw that rendition of the Performing Arts Center, I remember when the students from MIT came here and did a plan for a Performing Arts Center at the old at the CSX property, but there was no parking. So gentlemen, make sure there's parking. I don't know what we need to do, but parking can't be an issue in the future of Brockton. So that's a big thing, and that's why a lot of developments don't go through. A lot of people that want to invest in Brockton but can't because, you know, they can't get through our boards and they can't meet the, so we need to work with them. And the other thing is, what can we do? What do we need to do to move this? And I know, you know, this is, you've been before us numerous times with these beautiful plans, you know, there's been changes, but what can we do as city councilors to help move this a little quicker? Is there anything we can do?
First thing is to approve it. Approve the amendment. That's the first thing. Second thing is that talk to your constituents. Let them know what's going on. If you don't have the answers, we're always available at the BRA and the planning department. And my tribe and my staff, they're younger than I am. They're millennials. They know how to put stuff on Facebook, Twitter, all that other internet, digital. We can get them plans. If they want a hard copy, just email me and ask. We'll send it out, you know. Its information is crucial, and their participation is crucial.
And if I could, I think the most important thing is that we, as Brockton, speak with a unified voice and support projects and support people who are developing, especially homegrown people who are creating new businesses and investing in the city. And you know, sometimes there's issues that we have to work our way through, but there's a lot of things that can get nitpicked to death. And that is what shows up in the news media, not the things that succeed. It's the stuff that is bludgeoned.
I agree, and that's part of why I made my first comments. We need to support people who want to invest in the city and who want to do development, even if we don't agree totally on the project, but if it's, you know, if we can work together to get good development here, I think it's, we should be supportive. So thank you again. Thank you, gentlemen. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Counselor. Anybody else? Counselor Nicastro.
Thank you. Good evening. I was telling Mr. Jenkins earlier, I did take the time. I was taking no chances with this presentation tonight. So I did print the entire 102 pages and read them over. And it's very good, and it's very optimistic, and I like it a lot. So what are you going to do for Campello?
Just on a side note?
Yeah, just as a side note.
Side note,
Is
I wanted to do
Campello around the corner
Campello
from
first
this?
before I got outvoted downtown.
Montello, you wanted
Yeah,
to do
throw me
Montello.
under the bus.
I wanted to do Campello first.
There should be, the governor's going to be making an announcement hopefully soon about a new investment opportunity.
Called
The,
Neighborhood,
what did we call it? Oh, it's the Connected Neighborhoods.
Connected Neighborhoods.
Connected Communities, Connected Neighborhoods. And I can't say that we were selected. I can't say that publicly because it's embargoed information. So I'm not saying it.
You're hopeful.
We're hopeful.
You're hopeful. Okay, thank
And we
you.
have plans for Kimball.
Okay, thank you.
And Montello.
And Montello, and the village.
And the village.
Right.
Absolutely.
So when you make these lists of houses, or I should say properties, mostly not houses, and something that will be demolished, something that will be rehabilitated and stuff, do you take into account any structural problems with these properties?
Absolutely.
And how are you aware of them?
In most cases, especially when we did it in 2016, we had the assistance of consultants, but also the BRA and the planning department. We did visuals of a lot of these properties. One is because we worked downtown and they were very close, easy to see. I would suspect our methodology will be very similar in identifying, whether it's distressed, identified by counselors, going in and doing an assessment. A lot of these properties, you'd be surprised, the information that our assessors department already has on its structure, the building department. I have to say, and I'm just saying this because when I work with a lot of the departments, whether it's the building department, assessors department, even the tax collector, has been very receptive to the information that I need in order to create that document, or the consultants. But we really do go and do a kind of thorough assessment for downtown. And I suspect it'll be just as thorough when we do other neighborhoods in the city.
And I was going to say, some of the properties that are identified for demolition make way for a much larger project on the site. And so that's how they make the list as a demolition. And if it has historic value to it, we certainly try to do it on the rehabilitation list. But an example would be Ted Carmen's project on Petronelli Way. Robert and I didn't, beautiful historic building, but we didn't think it could be salvaged at all.
A couple of them like that.
And we said, it needs to come down. It's in the way. And God bless Ted Carmen for buying the property and rehabbing it. But, so you'll notice in our plan, this new amendment, it goes from being a demo to a rehab property, because he's rehabbing it. Other properties, are,
19 Main.
we thought we'd have been able to save 121 Main Street. And it came down, and we have a much bigger, beautiful building there that houses, the Brockton Beer Company. But
And 48 units.
sometimes it's a guess, or it fits into a larger scheme. Sometimes that large scheme doesn't happen, but we're trying to make a projection today as to what's going to happen 5 years from now.
I noticed that among the properties listed in here is the McLaughlin property on Montello Street, but it has since been purchased by Mr. Anatole, and last week obtained, I believe, zoning relief
Correct.
for what they want to do. So will that property be exempted from this plan?
It would be, because he's moving forward with his plan. The objective a lot with our strategy is to, how should I say?
Light a fire under?
He says light a fire, but it's actually to make development happen. It's not that we have to do it, but it's in order for a developer to see an opportunity and make it happen, just like Mr. Anatole. We had a much bigger vision with looking at hopefully doing just not the D'Angelo's building, but the Dunkin' Donuts and the other site that's next to it, Avon Auto, and then even the sites across the street, doing something bigger, grander. But he came in, he got a deal, he bought it. We now have to look at a plan B. Still having those sites available, and I'm sure someone will step up and do something with those other sites. But the key here is we have a plan.
Right.
A lot of communities don't.
Well, of course, as you mentioned in your opening comments, we've added several hundred units in the downtown area, and that's great, and you're planning to add many more. We need a drugstore. We need we have a dry cleaner on
But we
Legion
need
Parkway.
another one. We need more than just one.
Right. We need a breakfast place. We need a nice dinner place at night. We need some culture, which I suppose a performing arts place, but that will be further out. We need those things sooner versus later, because we have several hundred people, and I have had people say to me, about the transit-oriented dwellings proposed in Campello. Well, it's a great idea, but what do you do on the weekends? So we do have to, you know, put the pedal to the metal on those kinds of things.
We do. And one of the things I know, I talked with the mayor just last week, we really do need to understand, we did our market analysis on commercial development at least 6, 7 years ago. Market has changed. We need to kind of relook at that analysis, relook at that strategy, come up with a brand-new strategy. We have to. The times have changed now.
And it's going to be changing again by the
And it's
looks of
going
it.
to change again.
So we have to
Got to be able to move.
stay on top of it.
This next couple of
yes.
months are going to be tough.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselors, if there's nobody else, is there a motion?
Motion to send this back favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All those in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Director.
I am trying to figure it out.
Agenda 2, ordered that the city council authorize the reauthorization of the Comcast revolving fund for FY 2023 from all cash receipts from Comcast franchise fees in excess of $675,000 pursuant to the cable license contract, and that further, that the expenditure from this fund shall not exceed $750,000 without further appropriation during fiscal year 2023. Invited Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, and designee Tiffany Casulo, Budget Director.
Counselors, the CFO is unable to make it tonight, so our Budget Director has graciously stepped in. Madam Director.
Good evening, councilors. In your memo that Troy sent last week, this is just the reauthorization for the yearly Comcast revolving fund for FY '23.
Motion to send this back to full city council favorably.
On the motion, Counselor?
I would just like to recognize that Mr. Scott Mercer, the new directors in the chambers. So, welcome. How's everything going? Good at BCA? Yes. Oh, very good. Going well. Thank you. I just wanted to recognize that you were here since this concerned your budget.
Well, we'll be hearing from him in optimistically a couple of minutes. The motion's been properly made and seconded, I believe. Is it seconded? Yep. All those in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Agenda item number 3, ordered that the city council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $190,596 from Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Elder Affairs Formula Grant to Department of Council of Aging Formula Grant Fund. These funds will be used to fund the Council of Aging and dispersed in the following manner: salary, including overtime, energy, department equipment, repair, printing, office supplies, and registration, memberships, and description. Invited, Janice Fitzgerald, Director, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, designee
Good evening.
Tiffany Casulo, Budget Director.
Good evening, councilors. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. I'm Michelle Brace, the Assistant Director from the Brockton Council on Aging. And Janice Fitzgerald, our Director, asked me to come before you tonight to ask you to accept the annual formula grant for FY '22.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council, but before that, I would like to congratulate Miss Michelle Brace on becoming the assistant director, because even though she's been at the COA, she's new to this position, so congratulations.
Thank you, Councilor. Second.
Well deserved. Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Assistant Director.
Thank you, councilors.
Item 4, ordered that the city council authorize the reauthorization of the roadway design and construction revolving fund for fiscal year 2023 for the sole purpose of funding the creation and maintenance of the roadway design and construction revolving fund, shall receive the receipts of payments of fines and fees for the engineering, design, construction, and paving of the projects. Expenditures from the roadway design and construction revolving fund shall be made on the authorization and the direction of the Brockton Department of Public Works Commissioner, provided that no more than $1 million may be so expended from the roadway design and construction revolving fund during the fiscal year 2023. The Brockton Department of Public Works Commissioner shall comply with the reporting requirements, Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half. Invited Pat Hill, DPW Commissioner, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Mr. Commissioner.
Councilors, so this is the second year of this fund. It was established, I believe, in February or March of this year. To date, we have not accepted any money. The first round of paving from the outside utilities. So the intent of the fund is to capture money from private utilities as opposed to them reinvesting in the roads. The selections are made street by street. The first round of Eversource paving that could potentially affect this fund will start in July. We're going back and forth with some streets, so we don't have any money in it as of yet, but I do expect there to be money in it by September.
Sounds good. Councilors? Counselor Azak.
Before I make a motion, just a quick question. Approximately how many streets do you think, like this year, would you be able to?
It all depends on the street, Counselor, to be honest with you. Some streets, we're going to allow them to restore the pavement as they normally would. So it's a street-by-street kind of basis. We went out and toured their paving schedule for July on Thursday. There's a couple, I talked to a couple of councils in the affected wards, and I probably will be going for a ride with them just to see what we're up against before we make any selections. Sometimes pavement restoration on a street that's already kind of deplorable doesn't really make sense. So kind of trying to work our way through the fund right now to try to figure out how to better or to best invest the money, so.
Okay, thank you. I make a motion to send this back to the full city council.
Second.
Favorably.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you,
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Thank you. Getting you out early this week.
Agenda 5, ordered that the following name sum be the same is hereby transferred as is the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $2 million from the certified free cash to the pension stabilization fund. Invited Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, designee Tiffany Casulo, Budget Director.
Madam Director.
Good evening, councilors. As you know, we borrowed for the pension obligation bonds, and this is part of our plan of finance to put the $5 million a year into our pension stabilization fund. So this is the $2 million from our $19 million in free cash, and then we'll come back to you during the fiscal year 23 to put the rest of the allocated funds into the stabilization fund. So this is just going to be the first transfer, and then during the fiscal year, we'll come back and do another transfer.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Councilors, the motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you.
Agenda item 6, ordered that the city council authorize the reauthorization of the demolition revolving fund for the FY23 for the sole purpose of helping to fund costs in the connection with demolition of buildings in the city of Brockton. The demolition revolving fund shall receive the receipt of payments of all demolition charges of the city of Brockton. Expenditures from the demolition revolving fund should be made at the direction of the building superintendent with the written approval of the mayor, provided that not more than $110,000 may be so expensed from a demolition revolving fund during FY23. The building superintendent shall comply with reporting requirements of the Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half. Invited James Pluff, Superintendent of Buildings, Troy Clark, Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening, Mr. Superintendent.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. and councilors. I'm just looking for the reauthorization of the fund for demolition. We've had this for quite a few years, and thankfully haven't had the need to deplete it, although we have used it in the past, and it has been reimbursed numerous times.
Councilor Castro.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioner.
Good evening, Councilor.
So I'm wondering, how much money did we use out of this fund in this fiscal year?
We have not used this fund in quite a few years. I haven't used this fund in my tenure. I'm coming up on 2.5 years.
Right, so not in '21, not in '22.
Correct.
Why?
It hasn't been needed, Councilor. We went through the COVID times, and not much was done during that time. In the past year, we've assembled a number of buildings to be demolished. We have it right now going out, received a bid, and we're going out to demolition in the next week or two, as long as we get the contract signed by all relevant parties. That money was transferred out of the vacant abandoned building fund. So we used that money first, as it's a revolving account also, for that demolition.
And how much do we now have in the fund?
In the revolving fund, I believe it's, the email was sent out today. I don't have that figure on the top of my head, but I think it's like 162,675 and 63 cents. Thanks. Thank you.
I knew she'd know. And recently, we had some press on the front of the local newspaper about properties on the demolition fund. And so I just wondered, we are going to pursue this soon, right?
That's correct. That we have, we're awarding the bid to Costello Dismantling. We've removed 2 buildings off the list. One's going into receivership and one's going to be demolished by its own owner. The other 8 are going to be demolished as soon as we can get this, the award out and contracted.
Okay. And typically, the cost of demolishing each dwelling or structure, that gets tacked onto the tax bill, doesn't it?
That's correct. We bill the property owner, and if that bill is not paid within a year, depending on when the bill is placed, could be a year and a couple months, but the treasurer would then place that as lien if it's not paid, and that would be possibly subject to foreclosure at some point.
And who makes the decision to demolish?
That would be me.
You do. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor, no? Okay. Oh, Counselor Teixeira.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Superintendent, to be here. We just approved 1.4 about a few weeks ago, right, for demolition?
That is correct. That's $1.4 million was authorized to come out of the vacant abandoned building fund to demolish those buildings. Correct.
So there's 110, so you're asking for $110,000 for demolition?
Yeah, this fund that we're asking for reauthorization is a standing demolition fund that we've had for a number of years. I'd say in my tenure as an inspector here for the city, 20+ years. This is kind of an emergency fund to be used for demolition where our budgetary resources are used up, and we can use the demolition revolving fund for that reason.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other counselors?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Don't go too far.
Agenda 7, ordered that the city council authorize the reauthorization of the vacant and abandoned building revolving fund for the purpose of maintaining the abandoned building registry, as well as the closing, boarding up, and care of the vacant and abandoned buildings. The vacant and abandoned buildings revolving fund shall receive the receipts of payments of fines and fees for the registration of vacant and abandoned buildings. Expenditures from the vacant and abandoned buildings revolving fund shall be made on the authority and direction of the building superintendent, provided that no more than $250,000 may be so expensed without further appropriation from the vacant and abandoned buildings revolving fund during the FY23. The building superintendent should comply with the reporting requirements of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53.5. Invited James Plouffe, Superintendent of Buildings, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Mr. Superintendent.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much, and councilors. This is also a revolving account that we've had on the books for about 10 to 14 years. I believe 2008 was when we now enabled the Vacant Abandoned Building Fund. It's grown over the years. We've used it for numerous demolitions and board ups. Again, as Councilor Texera just pointed out, we just had 1.4 million removed from this account to be put into another fund to be able to pay for demolition. So this was just a continuation of the use of the fund.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
On the motion, Councilor Nacastro?
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Plouffe.
Good evening, Councilor.
So I'm wondering, how much money is in it right now?
It's about 960,000, give or take a couple thousand.
Okay. And so there's a list. We keep a list?
We have a database of the buildings that we have
Okay.
vacant.
And is that made available to the public when they request it?
No, it is not. As under direction of the law department and state law regarding dangerous buildings and what we believe is a danger to the public, we don't give that list out because we don't want to invite the, derelicts and other people to enter these buildings, steal copper, live in
Sure.
it, things like that.
Pipes, sure. That sounds right. And I'm wondering, of the properties on this list, how many of them are in tax title? How many of them will we eventually own?
I do not have that information. A lot of the vacant buildings are foreclosed upon by banks, but I don't have the number of how many we actually have in tax title.
And does someone from your office track down the new owner after a foreclosure auction?
We will. I have currently interviewed and we've tendered an offer to a new building inspector who will be tasked with vacant and abandoned buildings. And that building inspector will be the one that researches, goes out to the buildings, makes lists of what's occupied, what isn't, takes them off the list. And we'll also have an administrative assistant that's dedicated for that job also to be able to make notifications in accordance with the ordinance.
Because it's probably several hundred, and it probably is a full-time job.
I would say, Counselor, I think by the number I ran just recently was like 260. I had mentioned last week about 300. I think we're probably over that if we haven't been going out on a regular basis checking for vacant buildings. It's probably in excess of 300.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I second that motion.
Thank you, Counselor. The motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda number 8, ordered that the following named sum be and the same is hereby transferred as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $21,271 from Parking Authority Capital to Parking Authority Snow Removal. Invited Eric Axon, Executive Director, and Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Mr. Director.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Good evening, councilors. I'm here to ask you to approve a transfer of money from our capital line to our snow removal line. If you all remember back on January 28th, we had a record snowfall of 28 inches, and that particular storm in particular ate up $32,000 of our $45,000 budget. The remainder of the year got us to the number that we're at now, so we have the money to transfer, and we'd like you to approve that.
Motion to recommend favorably to the full city council.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All those in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you, councilors.
Thank you, Mr. Director.
Agenda item 9, ordered the city accepts the 4th paragraph of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B, which allows the dedication without further appropriation of all or percent not less than 25% of particular fees, charges, or receipts to the Stabilization Fund established under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B, to be effected for the year beginning on July 1st, 2022, or take any other action relative hereto. Invited Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, Designee Tiff Casulo.
Madam Director.
Budget Director.
Good evening again. This acceptance, we have been working with the law department on for quite some time now. It's just accepting a portion of the general laws to set up a special stabilization fund for our marijuana revenues to come in and put those recreational and medical into that stabilization fund. As of right now, they come in as revenues and just go into the general fund, and then whatever is left, whatever we collect at the end of the fiscal year just amounts to free cash. So setting up this stabilization fund will have the funds put into a quote-unquote pot of money, and then the next order that the auditor will read will set up allowable uses for us to spend that money.
Councilors? Counselor Azak.
Thank you. So I just have a question. It says on the second sentence, which allows the dedication without further appropriation of all. So you'd still have to come before the city council for appropriations, or?
Or a percentage of not less than 25% of the receipts and charges to the stabilization fund. So I would better defer that question to law. Whereas I'm not an attorney, I don't want to give you an answer that's not legally sound. I can definitely.
I mean, I'm not an attorney, but I read that and it pretty much says that way, even though I think everything has to come before us, but it says without further appropriation.
Right, so this order sets up the stabilization fund, and then on number 10, that will go into the actual wording of what the community compact fees are, where it may not be less than 25% of the fees, but not limited to medical marijuana and all the recreational of what we can spend it on. But I will defer that question to Megan in the morning, and then I can email you, and I'll email all of you.
Is this item time sensitive? Is it something that needs to be, I mean, we're just trying to fix it, right? We're not, there's nothing
We need to accept it prior to the end of the fiscal year.
Oh, okay, so that's
because
right now.
setting up any stabilization fund needs to be done prior to the end of the fiscal year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor D'Agostino.
Is there any negative consequence to, and I'll tell you why in a second, postponing this item? Because I feel like we kind of have an important question.
Answered it.
I'm sorry.
I had asked the counselor a question. That's
No
fine.
problem, but yeah, so Tiffany just said it has to be passed prior to the end of the fiscal year, which is, what, next week? So.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. I was answering a question from the chairman. Okay, so we don't really have a choice.
Wow.
Counselors, this does have to go back to the full council for another vote. Answers that we want can be provided to us before a final vote.
Okay.
All right.
You know, a response from Solicitor Bridges and CFO Clarkson, and you know, possibly the mayor as well.
That's fine. It has to go for another reading. That's fine. I just, you know, we have questions like that, you know, it just, anyway. Okay. All righty. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Anybody else? Counselor Nicastro.
I just wanted to make a comment. I'm sure Ms. Casulo will get the information to us,
Oh, yeah.
but we can also, I would assume that Mr. Clarkson would be available next week if we wanted to ask him to come to the council meeting and just speak to us about it.
I know I'm, through you, Mr. Chair, I'll be calling the law department just to ask my questions tomorrow, but thank you.
If it is the will of the council, we could request the presence of Solicitor Bridges and CFO Clarkson at the next meeting.
I would make a motion to request them at the next meeting.
Roll that in with the,
Okay, make a motion to send this favorably back to the full city council with,
you don't need to add that to the
yeah,
motion.
that's
They'll
fine.
get it. Yep.
If we can ask them to have, to come before us, that would be great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. There's a second.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Agenda number 10, ordered to see if the city will dedicate all or a percentage, which may not be less than 25% of the community impact fees, including but not limited to medical and recreational fees, collected under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 94G, and related host community agreements to the Community Impact Stabilization Fund established under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B, effective for fiscal year beginning on July 1st, 2022, or take any other action relative thereto. Invited Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, Tiffany Casulo, Budget Director.
Good evening again. This one is relative to the previous order. This order would dedicate the percentages of what the money can be used on for the revenues received for recreational and the medical marijuana for any specific purposes.
Counselor Azak.
Thank you. Just a quick question. How much is in this account how much has the city received from the recreational marijuana licensees?
So recreational, it's about 550,000. Medical, it's about 1.2 million. So combined, it's about 1.8 in total.
And that's just for this year, correct? Correct. Wow, and so medical's still bringing in more than all of the recreational licensing. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other counselors?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Agenda 11, ordered that the following named sum be in the same is hereby transferred as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $185,000 from certified free cash to education collaborative programs, Southeastern Regional School. Invited Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, and designee Tiffany Casulo, Budget Director.
So this is our last final payment to Southeastern that we pay them quarterly. This $185,000 was cut in the FY22 budget cuts. So we are just reappropriating it so we can fulfill our obligation to Southeast Regional.
Counselors?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion has been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Agenda item 12, ordered that the following named sum be and the same is hereby transferred as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $750,000 from the Cable Revolving Fund to the Brockton Public School Facilities Revolving Fund. This transfer will be used for the renovations to the Brockton High School's auditorium. Invited Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, designee Tiffany Casulo, Budget Director.
Good evening once again. This transfer will be from our Cable Revolving Fund to one of the capital school accounts to do upgrades to the auditorium sound system. The school department, I believe Aldo Petronio, did send a quote over to the attachment of Troy's little synopsis for a quote of the $750,000 and a detailed estimate of what this will cover.
Motion to recommend favorably to the full city council.
On the motion, Councilor Castro?
Thank you. Ms. Casulo, I'm wondering, why aren't ARPA funds paying for this?
With ARPA funds, it has to be a specific usage dedicated towards COVID or something related to COVID. And it has to fall in a specific category under federal guidelines. Whereas this doesn't necessarily fall into any category. And we have the money and it's a legitimate expense out of the Cable Revolving Fund.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor.
I
Counselor.
second the motion.
Oh,
I
good.
already did.
You did?
You did?
Yeah.
I was about to
second right
say I
after
needed
that.
a second, so, good.
We got a second.
All right, the motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to recognize that we have, from the Arts Department at the high school, we have administrators here, teachers. So thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you.
Agenda number 13, ordered that the city council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $50,000 from 2022 Blue Cross Blue Shield, the BCBS of Massachusetts National Fitness Campaign, FY22 National Fitness Campaign Grant, to Parks and Recreation Department, FY22 National Fitness Campaign Grant Fund. These grant funds will be used by the Parks and Recreation Department to re-renovate Tukis Playground and a fitness court to meet the differing needs of a shifting community. Invited, Tim Carpenter, Superintendent of Parks.
Counselor Mendez.
Yes, I make a motion to postpone this item to our next finance meeting, which is next month. There's still additional items that is required, so they asked us to give them more time.
Thank you, Counselor. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded to postpone this to the July Finance Committee meeting. All in favor? All opposed? Matter is postponed. Thank you, Counselors.
Next agenda item is 14, ordered that the city council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant in the amount of $2,617 from Commonwealth of Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, MEMA FY21/22 Hazardous Materials Emergency Preparation HMEP Grant, to the Emergency Management Agency Department, FY21-22 Hazardous Materials Emergency Preparation, HPMP Grant Fund. These grant funds will be used by the Emergency Management Department to purchase office supplies and materials to be used for planning purchases. Invited, Steve Hook, Director, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Mr. Director, good evening.
Mr. President, good evening. City councilors, good evening. So this is just a straightforward grant, no match, to be used to assist us with planning.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Director.
Agenda item number 15, that the city council authorize the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $8,605 from Boys and Girls Club of Metro South Nancy Lieberman Charities Grant to the Brockton Police Department Nancy Lieberman Charities Grant Fund. This donation will fund 2 weeks of a junior cadet program for Brockton youths between the ages of 14 and 16 this summer. Invited, Michelle St. James, Grant Coordinator of Brockton Police Department, Brenda Perez, Acting Chief of Police, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening, Ms. St. James.
Good evening. I apologize. I've been sitting all day and I just can't take it anymore. I need to stretch. This donation from Boys and Girls Club gives our junior cadet program a real foundation. We started it last year with CDBG funds. That was never intended to be a permanent solution to having the junior cadet program. This strengthens our partnership with Boys and Girls Club, and it gives us excellent facilities at which to hold the junior cadet program. And it also will provide the youth with the wraparound services that the Boys and Girls Club can provide.
Counselor Azak.
Thank you. Good evening, Ms. St. James. And this is great. I'm excited about the junior cadet program because we've talked about it and it's happening. Approximately, do you know approximately how many kids are actually signed up for the program or that are taking advantage of this program?
We are going to be cutting it off at 20 kids per session, so 40 kids total this summer.
So it's 2 sessions this summer?
Sessions, 1 week each, yes.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Motion's been properly, it hasn't been seconded.
Second.
Second. Is there a hand over there? No? Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Agenda item 16, resolved to have an ad hoc committee made up of the city clerk, the chief financial officer, and the city auditor, or their designees. Investigate the compensation and staffing levels of the mayor's office, city council, and school committees of similar gateway cities to the city of Brockton in size and scope of Massachusetts. Invited, Tim Cruz, city clerk, Troy Clarkson, chief financial officer, Karen Praval, city auditor.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and councilors. This is something actually Councilor Fowle had filed, but I think he's had some conversations with a lot of us through the last few years. I think we realize, most people who are involved realize that the compensation level for the city council, in particular, and the school committee, is woefully inadequate for what the job is. What this committee would do is put together and go out, and mostly my office, but with the assistance of the auditor and the chief financial officer, look at the pay levels of similar cities in the Commonwealth, of the mayor's office and the councils, and how the school committees are funded, and also to look at how some of those city councils in particular, and it's something we all have talked about for the last 2 years when I've been in, how those city councils are served, and whether other cities and towns are doing something different than what we're doing to give you and the school committees the proper backup to serve the people of the city. So this is just to get approval of a committee to go out and look at this information and come back to you as a council and give you some ideas of where we need to move forward. And if anybody has any questions.
Councilor Azak, followed by Councilor Nacastro.
Good evening, Mr. Clerk.
Good evening.
So quick question.
Yeah.
We've been talking about this for years. Yes,
Right.
I'm in support of this, but does it need to be an ad hoc committee, or is it something?
No, it's just, I mean, it's easily, I mean, an ad hoc committee means it has no authority, and there is no, this committee, to be honest with you, I don't really, until I get some information, I don't even think that Ms. Praval and Mr. Clarkson will be too involved. My staff and I will be, it's really about research with other cities and towns, particularly the other gateway cities and towns, and how it's easy for us to say that these places are doing X and Y, but we really need to do some investigation and see what they're doing out there to know best practices, really, you know, what level is too much to pay, what level isn't enough. But, and again, I think all of us who've been here for a few years, it's almost, every time you talk to a constituent, they can't believe how little the council gets paid for what we do. And there'll be people at home I know that say, oh, they're crazy. But anybody that deals with you as councilors knows that, and again, you know, we want to look at the mayor's pay, school committees, you know, not just pay, but how they're backed up and what other cities and towns are doing. So the idea of a committee, it's really just, I don't want to do this without the council saying, yes, please go out and do this. So I think that was Councilor Fowle's thought process behind putting a resolve in. You know, it's certainly something I could have gone and started to do on my own, and some of the information is done, but you really want I wanted the will of the council behind this to understand and so the public knows that we're out there looking and finding the best practices for everybody so that we know that we're serving the public the best way we can.
Sure, and I agree with you. That's why I knew that your office would be the one probably getting the
yes.
majority of the
Yes.
research. That's why.
But I think when we get all the information together, you know, the questions will be, I mean, well, first of all, the Finance Committee, and again, we'll probably be talking about that in the future. I know Councilor Fowle in particular has expressed an interest in maybe having the Finance Committee stay as part of the city clerk's office, but all of those things I think will be part of what the information I'll try and bring back together. And again, we can't decide how much we can pay people without the chief financial officer being part of that conversation too. So my guess is that Ms. Praval and Mr. Clarkson will be more involved after the information is gathered and in discussions with, you know, what best practices to recommend going forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Nacastro.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Clerk Cruz, and thank you for waiting. I know you didn't have a choice.
That's what I do.
I know. So I did speak briefly with Counselor Farwell today, and he kind of anticipated that we would be postponing this, and you would be coming back to us.
We talked earlier today, I mean, I don't need to know that, where this is really just a vote to say, yeah, go start gathering the information. I don't know that we need to postpone it, you know.
Okay.
And again, I don't know that we even need to have an official vote. I felt more comfortable after talking with Councilor Farr. We've talked about this for a couple of years, he and I.
Sure.
And there is, there is some timing involved if there was going to be any pay increases, because they can't be done next year, because that's an election year, so they would have to be finalized in this calendar year. So, I mean, you can certainly make a motion to postpone. You know, I don't think it needs to be, because there is no, this committee will have no binding authority. It's really just to say, please go out and get that information. And again, it could have been done, it can be done without. I think it's to let the public know that that we're going to be looking at this in a fair and equitable manner. But, you know, I've always had an argument that if we don't pay well, people don't want to do the jobs, and it's a pretty thankless job no matter how much you make. So, you know, I've sat over there, and you're all over there now, and even the 4 new councilors, I'm sure Councilor Texera would pull out what hair he has if he could some days, because it can be pretty thankless. I mean, just what this council had to do. I mean, this is what you do, this is what you ran for. But the budget last week, those hours are long and hard, and it's not easy for everybody. It's a part-time job, and even that will be some of what we'll look at. What are other towns doing? Cities, not towns. What are other cities of our similar background doing, and how are they running their city councils and their mayor's office and their school committees, and come back with whether we need to make some changes. And maybe we don't. Maybe we're doing better. I don't know. But we don't know until, and again, so I did talk to Councilor Farwell this afternoon, and I don't think there needs to be a postponement, because this is not an official, there is no official standing of this committee. It's really just to let the public know and let all of you know, and so that you're asking us as a committee to go out and find this information and come back to you. So I would think you don't want to have a postponement, but that's certainly up to you.
Okay. How much time do you think you need?
Well, I don't really know, and in fact, you know, the councilor did say, should we put a time frame in for when to report back? I don't think we need to. As soon as I can get all the information together, I'll ask to be on the agenda and come back and make recommendations. And again, because if there are raises to be done, they need to be done this year. You know, I'll be moving quickly on this to get the information, but it won't be that easy. You know, there's a lot to it. And so, you know, I would think I'll be back in a month or so, but I don't want to guarantee that either. Okay. Because the cities and towns I'll be reaching out to, and other city clerks, and, you know, it is summertime, they may not be available to sit with and get there. Some of it is just, we'll find online, but some of it you won't. So I'll certainly be dealing with the Mass Municipal Association about this and a few other. There are many places to find the information and see what works and what doesn't.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor D'Agostino.
I'll just chime in that I support doing this, and I'm going to support it because, and you kind of alluded to this, right? Maybe we're going to make changes. Maybe we're not going to change a thing.
No.
You know?
Right.
But whatever we do will actually be research-based instead of us just kind of saying, well, this seems like the way to go.
Well, exactly.
You know, it'll be research-based on, you know, again, whatever decision we make. So I think that makes sense, and so I'll be supporting this. Thank you.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Agenda item 17, resolved to have an ad hoc committee made up the city clerk, the elections commissioner, and the city solicitor, or their designees, research and define the process for possible changes to the term of office for city government in the city of Brockton. Be it further resolved to have this committee examine other cities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as to their city charters and length of terms of office. Invited Tim Cruz, City Clerk, Cynthia Scrivani, Executive Director, and Megan Bridges, City Solicitor.
Good evening, Mr. Clerk.
Good evening, and first off, I will tell you that Ms. Gravani was here, and I took it upon myself to send her home earlier because I didn't think there was a need. This is also something that Council Farwell has been very interested in. This will take less research as far as the process is very well spelled out. And again, whether it's a good idea to change the term of office of the mayor and the city council and the school committee, that's something that you will all have to decide how you feel on that. But the process is pretty well spelled out. It's in the city charter. It's a very difficult process to change the terms. It's a vote of the council. It then becomes the state legislature has to approve it, and then it has to go on the ballot to the people of the city. So it's not an easy thing to do. It shouldn't be an easy thing to do, but the research part of this one will be finding out what other cities and towns do. I don't know if some of you know, but we did have a 4-year term for the mayor back in the 90s, not the city council and not the school committee. And again, I won't make any comments on what my thoughts are personally on whether we need longer terms or, but I'll get the information again as somebody that comes from the private sector. And as Councilor D'Agostino was just saying, without doing the research, you can't, it's anecdotal what other cities and towns do. So we'll put together what research. This is less time sensitive. Again, this is, for this to happen, if you were to choose to move forward on this, it's a major endeavor, and it's, there's no emergency on it. But we'll get all that information together, and again, I know Councilor Farwell has his thoughts on it. Once we bring the information back to you, you as a council will make decisions on whether you even want to move forward on something like that. Again, if you do, there are a lot of steps to it, and they're difficult steps, and again, they should be, because you don't want to change this willy-nilly, but so it's pretty much the same thing. I'll put the information together and get all that to you. Again, this one will be a little bit secondary, although concurrently with the last committee that we just put together. And again, the whole idea of an ad hoc committee really was just a way to say, can those 3 people put this information together for us? Again, I have no standing, no budget, no standing. We'll just do it, it's part of our jobs anyways, but just to make sure the public knows what's going on and all of you. And again, this was Councilor Farwell's wish.
Councilor Azak.
Thank you. Thank you again, Mr. Clerk. So this is something that we've been talking about for years as well. I know I had spoken with, when I was council president, with the previous clerk, Mr. Zioli, and he had looked into it for us. And it is a process, but I think if we do want it to go into effect next legislative process, we need to kind of, I don't even know if it can happen.
No, it wouldn't happen. The earliest probably, and again, Megan Bridges would be better to speak about this, but when and if it even makes the ballot, which is the last step, the question is not for that current term, it is for the term after that. For instance, just historically, I can tell you that when Councilor Farwell was elected mayor, he was the last 4-year term, but the day he got elected was also the day that the voters had thrown out the 4-year term. So he was elected for a 4-year term, but it was no reflection on him. It was thrown out for the next election. So 4 years later, it was for a 2-year term, because if it gets that far, that makes the ballot. So it's really, the final effect is really about 6 years away if it were to happen, 4 years away at least. So, but can't get anywhere without starting, and again, without the discussion, and then having a discussion of what the feeling is of the council, the public, and again, the council could be 11-0 in favor of it, and the public might vote it down. So all those steps have to happen, including the state legislature approving it. So there's a lot to it, but that part is spelled out in the city charter.
It is. So just, I just want to let everybody know that besides the city council having a conversation on this, there was a group from the public that had been having meetings, and they were being posted on YouTube or on the city website. And just so, I don't know if maybe you'd want to the ad hoc committee would want to take a look at what this group, they were discussing extending the mayor's term. And I know they had multiple meetings, I think as
Again,
Pastor Joseph.
actually, kind of the way I look at it is, I may reach out to them, but my belief is what we'll do is just the facts, ma'am, as Joe Friday would say. Put the ideas together. It's not up to us to make policy. You know, when I sat over there, it was part of my decision, my job to make policy. My job now is to get that information for you to decide on. So I could reach out to them, but it really doesn't, in my opinion, what I'll be doing, it doesn't matter what they think right now, and I don't mean to sound that cold. My job is to just get the information together. What's the process, and what are other cities and towns, similar cities and towns doing? And then it's up to you to decide if you want to move forward with the next step.
Okay.
But my job is to just get the information together for everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Anybody else?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Item Agenda 18, resolve to invite Scott Mercer, the Executive Director of Brockton Community Access, to appear before the Finance Committee of the Brockton City Council to discuss his roles at the Brockton Community Access and his plans for the city's community TV access services. Invited, Scott Mercer, Executive Director of the Brockton Community Access.
Good evening, Mr. Director.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Good evening, councilors. How are you? First of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm honored to be here and meet you in person. Some of you I've met one-on-one, and I appreciate meeting you. I'll let you ask any questions and get to know me.
Counselor Azak.
Thank you. Well, welcome. So this is your first time here?
Yes, it is.
Before us. Well, welcome,
Thank you.
Mr. Mercer, and welcome to BCA in the city of Brockton. So, you know, BCA plays a huge role in our community as you televise our meetings regularly. And I know there were some changes with some of the channels just recently, not too long ago.
That's right.
And I mean, what are your plans? What are your goals? Like,
Sure.
what do you hope to see in changes at BCA?
Well, I hope to grow it. I hope to make the community part of it as strong as possible. Just to give you some background, I come from commercial television, network affiliates, and a couple of cable channels. I've actually helped launch and close a channel, and have been in front of and behind the camera. And so with PEG, what I have learned and what I think is most valuable is that it creates transparency for the community. I always say government channel is the best reality TV on TV, because if you want to know what's going on, if you want to see who's representing you, that the government channel is the place to go. Several people I know actually use the government channel as their resource when they move to a new community to get well known and acclimated with that community. So for me personally, it's all about community. It's about community engagement. I've already started my campaign, if you will, meeting with nonprofit organizations within Brockton, just to really let them know that we're there to help them get to the community so that the community knows their resources and the great work they're doing is available to them. It's also to get the residents to get engaged in the public access part of PEG, because that is their voice. I'm a big advocate of freedom of speech. Some speech I don't like, but I would never censor it because it is important for us to be able to say what's on our mind. And so with the Education Channel, I've met with all the schools. We've covered their graduations over the last few weeks. And so it's about getting kids and youth to come into the program, into the station, know it's there. We're currently working with Mass Hire to keep that engagement going. We have 11 young women who are actually creating a podcast. They're getting paid to do so, but they're also getting to know whether or not they want to be engaged in production in television and media. The other part of this is the small businesses. You've talked today about the development here. I'm excited. I do not live in Brockton. I live in Canton. But I have always, Saturday every morning until they make it cost prohibitive, I'm at DW Field with 9 other golfers, and we take advantage of that wonderful municipal course. But what I'm excited about is what actually was discussed tonight with the BRA and Robert Jenkins and the plans. We're right on 1 North Main Street, and I can see and feel the energy that is coming. And I think that we're a big anchor for that. I do think that, you know, based on what we provide for people as a center is what's going to be pivotal in the success, as well as what the other for-profit companies do. So it's an outreach to small business, it's an outreach to city council, it's an outreach to the nonprofit organizations and the schools to make sure they're aware that the Brockton Community Access Center is there for them. They are financing it through their cable franchise fee, so it is the people's television station. I am just going to be the best steward I can for it. And then hopefully within my industry, the PEG industry, can make Brockton Community Access the most talked about in a positive light in our industry. So that's my goal.
Well, very good, exciting. Yeah. So I would like to recognize the chair of your board,
yes.
Mr. Joe Miranda's here in the chambers. And
our clerk, Larry.
Oh, hi, how are you? You got board members. Thank you for being here. So, you know, and I know your predecessor and your board had done a lot of renovations to the station right before you came on board, and it looks beautiful. You see the vibe, you see the changes, so we're excited. Yes. We're excited, and thank you for all that you all do there. I do have just as far as just quick information, what channels can, I know I watch 12 is used to be always on, but I think now I have to actually look for it. What are the other stations?
Sure, I haven't memorized them yet because we just,
I haven't either, and I'm a regular watcher, so.
Yeah, my first week there is when they changed, so that wasn't fun. But I can pull it up for you. And I just want to say people can go to bcatv.org, and that'll give you those channels as well. And I want to say how fortunate Brockton is because they have all HD channels. That's very rare that every channel is HD in communities throughout the state as well as the country. Part of my goal is also to get the electronic program guide on there. The unfortunate part for me is as an executive director, I don't have a vote. I don't get to sit in negotiation, but I am a resource to the city to sort of help navigate that part of the industry because I think it is important that people know when the city council meetings are occurring, that they know what program is on the public and education channels, because they will then see the value of it and they'll know what programs that they want to watch and have that availability. At another time, we can talk about why that doesn't exist within the PEG industry and why cable companies are not providing that. But you are ahead of the curve when it comes to the high definition channels. So I give kudos to you and Comcast for providing that, because that's significant. Nobody wants to watch standard def on a 52-inch screen high def TV that they paid for. And that's what you are paying for. As far as the channels, I'm going to defer again to the website because I don't want to give erroneous information.
Yeah, I know they changed just like a few channels up or down.
That's correct. They each changed to HD, but the originals are still there in standard def. And then there's a fourth channel that is actually a combination of public education and government channel. But just a quick highlight, just so you're aware, we had 113 total programs in May, and they go from 16 public access, you know, there, obviously you mentioned earlier the 20 council meetings and subcommittee meetings that are on the channel. But, you know, 113 programs with a staff of 8, and then obviously volunteers. So my goal is to obviously expand that. I would love to be part of the conversation as far as the funding for the Brockton Community Access Channel. But really the goal is to get people engaged, because that's when community gets built. And we teach people for free, and I want to point out for free, the skill set to be able to tell stories issues that are happening in their community, the great things that are happening in their community, that they have that we empower them to be able to tell those stories. So those are my top 2 goals, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Oh, that's really great and exciting. So, and lastly, I know you said you weren't part of the negotiations. I believe the mayor and the board are.
Right.
There is something, so I've been on the council for 9 years, and from day one, all I hear from our seniors is how they can't afford cable, and I've been advocating for them to get a lower rate, and at one point, I thought we almost had it, but it's really, they're not getting a better deal, and that's something that I would, plead to you, your board. I've discussed it with Mayor Sullivan, I discussed it with Mayor Rodriguez, and I've discussed it with the late Mayor Carpenter. So our seniors that live in, senior housing need just a really low rate, and they're just not getting it. So there's something we should be able to do for them.
I agree, and they're also our best audience because they understand the value of getting that community information when they can't get out or participate. So I completely agree. I don't know if this is the appropriate forum for me to share what my thoughts are and how to do that, but I do believe that the dollar is the issue. And when you let the Comcast or any other cable franchise fee, that there are certain things that we want that if you don't do, there is some sort of repercussion. It's hard for them to go back to Philadelphia and say they're going to lose money. But seniors should have a discount. There's no question. I don't know why they wouldn't. I do know that there are a lot of variables that play into that decision by Comcast, and that can be what the income is for the city of Brockton overall, the mean or median income. But there are others that I can share with you. We also have trade organizations that do that work for us and with us. So I'd be more than happy to ever sit down and
I would
talk
love
with
that.
them.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
hopefully, because I think we just renewed not too long ago, maybe last year. I don't remember. I think it just recently, didn't we just redo our contract with them?
I would let the
So
board.
we will. We'll sit down and I'd love to go over that. But thank you again for all you do, and I'll open it up to my colleagues.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Nicastro.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mercer.
Good
Thanks
evening,
for coming. I invited you because I wanted to hear about your hopes and dreams in this new job.
Thank you.
Is there more?
Yeah, there's always more, yes. But for me, I'm in what I'll call the learning stage. I'm learning not only the facility, the board, and the city simultaneously. And what I've done thus far is to address the most immediate needs as it relates to my staff and the infrastructure, and working with the board, who've been extremely supportive in helping me to achieve those goals. Some of the things are new software that was actually just, and we're still actually probably 80–90% implementing, so that we can make sure that as we grow and we have more participation, we also have less conflict, less, booking conflicts, things of that nature. There's an inventory aspect to this. It's checking out equipment, checking in equipment. There's workshops and teaching. So for me, it's really was to get to know the staff. That's what I've done the last couple of months. Identify or listen to hear what some of the issues are that need to be resolved. Work with our board president and the board to address those issues and keep moving forward. From a strategic standpoint, for instance, it's really getting the nonprofit organizations, because they're the ones who don't have a marketing budget. They're the ones who don't have human resources. And what I've learned in the last 7 years, I come from Access Framingham, is that they don't know about the PEG stations. And that's the biggest thing. Someone talked about marketing earlier here today, and that's what we have to do. As much as we are a communications company, we need to do the same. And I'm very proud and happy and excited to say that's in process now. That's the biggest thing, because the way it kind of works in my book is that the nonprofit organizations are the ones who need the attention the most, but they're also the ones who are willing to partner with us. And then from that, their constituents then learn about us, and then they start to get engaged, and then the word gets out, and that's the goal. And I, as our board president, Joe, will tell you, the first week I was feeling like I got to get everything done today. And he said, you're going to be here a while, aren't you? And so the answer was yes, I am. And I did take a step and say, okay, slow down. But long term, it really is we can't be in a better position where we are downtown for that revitalization. We can't be in a better position. I have a talented staff and I have a talented board. And so for me, it's all coming together, and I'm going to try and leverage that to the best of our ability for the residents of Brockton. So,
I wish you success.
thank you. You've been supportive already, so I appreciate you.
Oh, my pleasure. Over the weekend, a resident made me aware that there was a generic screen saying update available on one of the stations. And so I just wondered about technical issues and how modern your equipment is.
Sure. There's always going to be technical issues when it comes to community access, because what people have to understand, we're not network, okay? We don't have the resources, human or financial, so there will always be technical difficulties, but what you're referencing is, because it's computer generated, that what can happen is, at times, depending on what the program situation is, it can be a live stream that all of a sudden the computer will update on its own, and that's what they probably saw. And like I said, because we're also a learning organization where we're teaching people and what have you, even the staff is learning. So I haven't been able to turn to that. If anybody's going to have a high standard, it's me, because I worked in news, and you can't make a mistake in news, okay, especially network news. And but I also have to prioritize the fact that I have to know what my staff is capable or not capable of. But the on-air issues will be resolved as I move forward in addressing like I said, the personnel as well as the experience. But that's what happened there.
I'm also, I understand, and we're watching.
Yes, absolutely, and that's good to know. We always hear when something goes wrong.
Exactly.
Yes.
I'm wondering about the station's commitment to election night reporting.
Sure.
Traditionally, there would be a live show reporting on election results, especially during the local elections, which were last year and will be next year. This past year, there was no local show put together, and I couldn't get over the number of people who commented on it to me. And I was getting phone calls, and I was waiting for my results as well. And so I'm hoping that you understand, in a community of 105,000 people, that local reporting is really important. Channel 5 doesn't care about our election results, at least not until the following day, nor does the Boston Globe, but we care, and we hope that your stations care.
Yeah. And so I'm aware of the situation that occurred. I've gotten multiple variations on that situation, so I am aware. And yeah, we will do everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen again, for starters. I was fortunate enough to be the executive director at Access Framingham when they went from town to city. We've hosted charter debates, and we also obviously covered the first African-American mayor in Framingham, first mayor as well, just in general. So I'm very privy to the political aspect of things. And again, back to resources, we will do our best, but we will also do it in a way that allows us to get the information out there. It may not be bells and whistles and fireworks, but the key is to get the information out there. And I can assure you that will happen without Comcast or any other signal taking over. We should be fine with that, yes. I'm also, if I may just continue, a candidate for a state seat called me today, asked about getting on, and I explained to him that absolutely, thank you for calling, and I just have to make sure that we provide equal time for that, for you with any other candidate, and we'll get back to that individual. So we're all about that to make sure that happens, and I, again, assure you that it won't happen again.
My colleague just reminded me too, in
Yes.
the past, there have been forums and debates with
Yes.
candidates.
Yes.
And again, it gets the information out to our seniors.
Absolutely.
Who are our most reliable voters.
That's right.
And so I would love to see the station do that again.
Yes.
This is the year for state races. And so it's very important.
Yeah, agreed, yes. And, you know, at the very least, if it's anything, we'll be working with the candidates to make sure the candidates have a forum so that they can speak directly to their constituents. Because we try to remain neutral in PEG, because even though we're a government channel, we still have to remain neutral, because that's the integrity of the channel. And so there will definitely be that kind of guideline so that everybody's on the same page.
And as I mentioned to you when I met with you, I'm interested in the financial situation there. And of course, we don't receive the annual report for Brockton Community Access.
Okay, I wasn't aware.
If you could forward like the last 2 years of them to the council, or even send it to me and I'll distribute it to the council.
Okay.
That would be very helpful. And it would go a long way to, you know, you mentioned earlier, additional funds would be desired.
Yes, absolutely.
And let us see how you're using your funds right now.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yep, and I do have to get caught up with agreements and how the infrastructure is, and I'm working with the board president to do that. But yes, absolutely, I appreciate that, because that would be helpful.
Okay. I also mentioned it to the board president.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other counselors?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Director.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Counselors, that's the end of our agenda. Are there any moments of personal privilege?
Mr. Mr. Chairman, sorry.
All right, they're both flattering. You call me whatever. Counselor D'Agostino, followed by Counselor Azak.
Yeah, I just wanted to recognize the folks at Commonwealth Alternative Care this past Friday. They reached out to me. They do various community service projects in the city and look to do those on a regular basis. They reached out for help setting something up. So they wanted to do a cleanup. And I spoke to the DPW Commissioner, Pat Hill, and I want to thank him and his staff for providing us everything we needed over at the main parking area and that main entry into Fields Park. Myself and several folks from Commonwealth Alternative were there on Friday morning and cleaned up a lot of trash. And so it made a real big difference in the way it looked, you know, once we were done. And finally, I'll comment too on that. We're fortunate that we have people like this that want to clean up our city. But seriously, if you use the park, there are trash cans. Put your trash in the trash cans. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Azak.
Before I make my announcement, I would like to also thank Commonwealth Alternative Care for keeping Ward 7 clean. So, and yes, we have a problem with littering throughout the city. So if we could just clean up in front of our houses, I'd be happy. So thank you again for the cleanup at DW. I'd like to announce that this Sunday, June 26th at 3 p.m., there is the reading of Frederick Douglass's speech. And it will be in the Frederick Douglass Park, which is right down here downtown at the end of Frederick Douglass Street. So it's please, it's always a great event. This has become an annual event, and the speech is read in multiple languages. So I hope to see everybody there. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Seeing no other business, we are adjourned.